Hi guys, good evening. Let's continue with the second topic, discrimination against indigenous peoples, and let's highlight some of the concepts and understand some basic questions and answers related to this discrimination. Okay, here in discrimination, um, I have to highlight. Okay, what's discrimination against indigenous people in Mexico? Among the structurally discriminated groups, indigenous peoples, Afro-descendant individuals, and Latin American migrants stand out. For various economic, political, and social reasons, these groups are forced to leave their countries. Access to reliable, relevant, and updated information on these issues is essential. This is because the main impediment to fighting discrimination is the failure to recognize that is sad that it is a sad reality affecting the lives of countless people, leading to affecting the life to countless people. Oh my god. I'm gonna write here, okay? Uh, in orange, that means it is subsequent. Okay. Um, is the failure to recognize that is a sad reality affecting the lives of countless people, leading to the reduction or depriv- de- deprivation of their fundamental rights and freedoms. The purpose of this chapter is to highlight the prejudice about the affected populations that lead to discriminatory treatment. Okay, based on a critical evaluation. That's important, okay? Based on a critical evaluation of the information yielded, gather, gather. Oh my god, fuck, gather, gather from Enadis 2022. If you remember, Enadis is an institution that makes some surveys related to discrimination. Let me recall you Let me call you back that analysis, this institution is the National Survey of Discrimination, and that is the National Survey of Discrimination. In this way, the aim is to define the initial foundation for an intervention project that, within the framework of education for interculturality, effectively contributes to. Okay, let's start by defining a framework of education for interculturality effectively contributes to abandoning a distorted representation of indigenous people. That's the aim, to define the initial foundation, and this effectively contributes to abandoning this and distorted representation of indigenous people. Afro-descendants and Latin America in favor of a respectful understanding of their identities. The relevance of these pages lies in the need to contribute from a philosophical perspective that's important, from a blah, 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 from a philosophical perspective to the elimination of inequality, racism, and discrimination. These objectives present among global concerns since the proclamation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights are also part of the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN's 23 Agenda. Now, big question. What is understood by discrimination? Discrimination is defined as social rejection based on stereotypes, prejudices, stigmas, and cultural values according to what a society or social group considers acceptable characteristics. Social social reaction occurs when a circumstance deliberately deliber, deliberately deliberately oh fuck fuck with that fucking pronunciation, my god. Yes, I can do it, come on, come on. Is uh deliberately. I haven't pronounced it yet before. I haven't pronounced it before. So let me deliberate deliberate deliberately pronunciation. My god. Let's hear it.
Deliberately.
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 Deliberately. Okay, so here one more time. Okay. Social social reaction occurs when a circumstance is deliberately created in which an individual or group is excluded from social interaction, in which an individual or a group is excluded from social interaction. This phenomenon encompasses, yeah, that's important. That's an important word. Hat pen and highlighter, but green. This phenomenon encompasses a wide range of expression. It can occur actively, for example, through behavior such as ridicule, insults, or mockery, or it can manifest passively um, through indirect behavior such as ignoring or dismissing. That's so important. We can understand how. Just give me a sec. I'm trying to reach out a reach out to a person. Ah, oh yet. I'm not interested. Okay, so yes, of course, discrimination is defined as a social reaction based on stereotypes, prejudices, and stigmas. And this social reaction occurs when a circumstance is deliberately created in which an individual or a group is excluded um, from social interaction. So, have I ever felt discriminated? It's a personal question that probably I might have been discriminated because I am a poor person, because I don't have the money to access to some spaces, or I consider myself, because this is an auto perceived discrimination. I consider myself not too handsome, or not too rich, or not like a person who doesn't know what to do. I mean, I have been discriminated, uh, not because of my race, or not because I'm unable. People discriminate, of course. People discriminate, and if you are not, if you don't have the credentials or some competences to do a work, you will be discriminated. Of course, you will be rejected. But what is important here, that this phenomenon, as it says, encompasses a wide range of expressions. It has, or it can be occur either actively or passively. For example, it can be occurred by through behaviors such as ridicule, insults, or mockery. Um, You can insult someone or you can ridiculize someone only because the person is a dumb or the person is an indigenous person. That's so fucking sad. But for me, it is just like most of people manifest a passive in a sec. Oh my god, that's fucking terrible. I just watched some nudes. Okay, I think that most people manifest discrimination in a very passive way by ignoring or dismissing some those people, indigenous or Afro Mexican or Afro Mexicans or immigrants. I haven't had the chance to meet an immigrant or indigenous people. When I walk around the city and I see them, for me, I think that because they are not part of my world, I ignore them. Um, you ignore something is because there is a prejudice of the person, uh, like the person is being poor or the person is uh, or the person is not at the same level that you are. Let's continue. What are the effects of discrimination from a sociological perspective? um, whoa, the term discrimination refers to practices that deny or restrict equal treatment and produce unequal outcomes for certain social groups. Important. Practices that deny or restrict equal treatment. So everybody is looking for a equal treatment here in democratic countries or democratic nations. Uh, According to the Constitution and according to liberal po- po- politics, all people must be treated as equal, but they haven't been treated uh, like that because there's of certain groups or certain social groups leading to leading to a deprivation of rights. These practices, regardless of whether they are carried out consciously or not, that's an interesting verb here. Regardless of whether they are carried out consciously or not, harm uh, the lives of their victims. So we are using here big words. When you discriminate someone, they are victims. Yeah, I don't truly buy this kind of narrative because when you discriminate, it doesn't mean they are truly victims. Depends on the harm you you do, and there is a victimization that currently happens, and um, I'm not in pro of thinking that a just the subtle um, reaction can make the other as a victim. I'm not in that kind. Now, what is interesting here is the origin of the discrimination lies in stereotypes. That's fucking amazing because let me add another highlight in this. And now here with pink is stereotypes. What are collective representations about others based on mere beliefs about their defining attributes? Collective representations about others based on mere beliefs about defining attributes. So we have collective representation about others. Stereotypes are like um, the Mexican or the American or some Gypsy people or some or some indigenous people, if we uh, talk to Gemini, what can be some of of the most of the most common stereotypes. Um, but Gemini is in Spanish. Can you tell me what are the most common stereotypes? My God, why can't you talk? I like you to talk. um, no, 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 thank you. Okay, it says can be gender stereotypes. Those are deeply rooted in many cultures, and it's only a oversimplification of our perceptions of individuals based on the gender. For example, men are strong, rational, and good leaders. Why not? And women are emotional, nurturing, and better at housework. If you think these kind of two worlds, we have men and we have women, according to the stereotype of gender or the gender stereotype, men are usually thought as strong and good leaders and rational, while women are perceived as emotional and nurturing and better at housework. So these leads these stereotypes lead us to control people according to their gender and expect what what the role should be in the society. Now here we have some stereotypes based on race and ethnicity. These are prejudices about people based on their racial or ethnic background. If I see someone coming up to me, when I see someone that shows up and then all black people are good at sports, I can say that all Asian people are good at math. For example, all people from a certain ethnic group are lazy or aggressive. Um, you can have experience of some of most of people like Asian people, like they are good at maths, and some black people they are good at sports, and that's true. That's a fact. But it doesn't. It is not like the way we should think because of this ethnic argument or because of this ethnicity argument make us think that all black people are good for sports because that is not the argument. We have some nationality stereotypes. They are generalizations, or I had said before that, for example, the gender, they are oversimplified perceptions, or, well, in this case, the nationality stereotype, they are generalizations. Whenever you see a French person, you might think the French person is someone who stinks or someone who is only someone who is proud, and it is a person who doesn't um, look who doesn't who who can who can look up who can look down to you on you. So it can happen, but depending of your prejudice, the way you act, the way you expect someone to act. So that's important, not to base our actions on or thoughts on these stereotypes. We have, of course, for example, Germans are efficient or Americans are loud and materialistic. Why not? French people are snobbish. I something that I just to tell you, and Italians are passionate, and Mexicans are lazy, for example, or Mexicans are toda madre, for example. So it can be so fucking uh, it's so fucking wrong when you try to think or to base your actions on these stereotypes, because it's not like Americans are loud and materialistic all the time. There is a social framework and there is a culture that make Americans expect and do like that, but it doesn't mean that you discriminate someone for for only coming from this framework. It is not fair. Equality and this equal treatment should be based on different things, or critical arguments. It's something like I have said. Also, we have age stereotypes that are assumptions based on a person's age. I think that this happened to my mother now, because she has just had an interview, a job interview, and she told me that the interviewer told her that she was too old to have the position. But it I it is not fair, because truly my mother is not too old. My mother is only 57 years old, and that doesn't mean that she couldn't get more, or she couldn't give more to a position. And that also means that the enterprise is has an stereotype of old people that cannot work. That's not fair. We have these examples from Gemini. It says that other people are technologically inept or unable to learn new things. This is, of course, something that is not productive when, in terms of education, when a person or a professor thinks that an old student can be inept or unable to learn. You are prejudging, you are making your argument and your thought, you are in the bias of not taking the person to learn about from you. So that's unfair. That's not an equal treatment. Now we have some disability stereotypes that, to be sure, this always happen. People think that when a person have a disability, uh, people have the assumption about those individuals that they are not able to walk, or they are not able to write or read or something, because they have these disabilities. They are helpless. They are intellectually inferior, or asexual might be. Why, if you are a beautiful woman, why do you discriminate some person or some a man who are not able to do something, for example? Okay, why? What are you looking in your life? Uh, this is the next one, is a sexual orientation stereotype. They are preconceived notions about individuals based on their sexual orientation. Like all gay are flamboyant, they are in this high and loud personality, they are outgoing always, but no, they are not. One more time, there is a generalization there, that a generalization that is a thought that is over simplifying thoughts or reality to one idea. So that is not fair for everything. And also we have a this sexual orientation. For example, all lesbians are masculine. It's not true. Also, we have some religious stereotypes about individuals based on their religious beliefs, like all members of a certain religion are extremist, are greedy, are intolerant, are uh, that's a scam or something. Other things, for example, for occupational stereotypes, assumptions about people based on their profession. Like librarians are quiet and studious, or philosophers are antisocial, for example. But not. There are some philosophers that I have known them before, and they are so outgoing. They are not necessarily a studious person or someone who is always hitting the books for to have or to bring the best class ever. Also, you have some appearance based stereotypes. They are judgments based on how someone looks. Blondes are unintelligent. People with tattoos are rebellious. So you can see it is just generalization that means you are wrongly thinking or accepting someone or not accepting the person only by judging or prejudging these stereotypes. Okay, it was just a something. It was a big parenthesis, and now we have stereotypes are components of the social imaginary that derive from a reductionist conception. That's something important here. They derive from a reductionist conception, distorting the identity. Very good. Distorting the effectively, no, distorting the identity of individuals and groups, and that's it. Now, not all prejudice is a stereotype, but every stereotype is a prejudice. Prejudices are judgments not supported by experience. Wow, it's interesting. Understood as direct contact with what is present in the world. Experience is a product of intuition, understood as cognitive, direct contact or contact provided by an iconic sign with any object. Intuition is opposed, for example, to mere linguistic mention, which refers to the same entity with no other assurance than its name and perhaps a very indeterminate sense of that name. Oh my god. Okay, prejudice. Prejudice are judgments not supported by experience, understood as direct contact with that, uh, with what is present in the world. Understood connected direct contact provided by an iconic sign with an object. Intuition is opposed, for example, to mere linguistic mention. Okay, which refers to the same entity with no other assurance than its name. The stereotype, far from being based on an intuition of reality, which arises through contact with the presence of something or someone, is a synthesis of opinions. Okay. That in turn produces judgments about things. Yeah. Okay, it says not supported by experience. Intuition is opposed, for example, to mere linguistic mention, which refers to the same entity with no other assurance than its name, and perhaps a very indeterminate sense of the name. Okay. Okay, a prejudice is far from being based on an intuition of reality, which arises through contact with the presence of something or someone. Is a synthesis of opinions that in turn produces judgments about things without full knowledge of them. The mere fact of belonging to a social group implies adopting its prejudice. Only the mere fact of belonging to a social group uh, implies adopting its prejudice regarding who we are and who the others are. This prejudice, even when not arising from that experience but rather masking it, significantly influence social interaction. Okay, yeah. Okay, so let's see what is a prejudice. Prejudice are, give me a sec. Give me a sec. Okay, prejudice are a synthesis of opinions only by being a part of a social group or only by belonging to a social group. It implies that you hear and you experience and you hear opinions about the group and about the others. So it is not simply because you have the direct experience of meeting with those people, only because you hear them, only because you hear their stories, you are part of it and you belong to it. So why not? It's just like a bias. It's like it's just like a bias. Okay, bias is. Uh, let me tell you here. Okay, let me ask to Gemini. What's bias and how do you relate a bias with the concept of prejudice? That means a synthesis of opinions. Okay, bias is a tendency, it's an inclination or predisposition for or against an idea. You have a bias, you have a predisposition of an idea, of an object, of a group, or individual. It can be conscious, it can be explicit, or unconscious, it can be implicit. And it is often learned through personal experiences, upbringing, cultural influences, and societal messages. You have key characteristics of bias. We have a partiality learned and can be positive or negative, and they have an impact. Bias can affect individual decisions, personal relationships, and even become institutionalized in policies and practices, leading to systemic to system to systemic discrimination. Now, a synthesis of opinions. Um, yes, it is far from being sustained by an intuition of the real. This means that prejudices, which are a form of bias, are not based on direct informed experience, but rather on a collection or synthesis of pre-existing beliefs, assumptions, and often distorted information. The most let me see what's going here. What's going on here? Um, okay. The most you hear the people around you that are part of the group you want to be, uh, the less you the less you can see or be tolerant to other kind of groups. Eventually, if the part of your group or the group is making some prejudice about the others. Now, these opinions are not necessarily well founded facts, but rather share societal notions that become solidified over time. Let's put an example about a prejudice. Just you are with your family, or for example, this. I think some people have seen, or most of people have seen, the Humbugs, the Disney Humbugs movie. It is like that, Humbugs movie, Hunchbacks pronunciation. Let me see how to pronounce the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
You are looking at Julian's pronunciation guide, web
Thank
movie,
you.
title, name, pronunciation, a movie by Disney, I believe it was. Really, the difficult part to pronounce here is Notre Dame. That's the French pronunciation here. The full name is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. That's
The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Yes. Okay, most people have seen this Disney movie, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and this is for me a fantastic illustration about how prejudices work. They basically they are um, they basically are they are two people. Okay, we have Frollo and we have Quasimodo. So they live together, and Quasimodo sees the world through Frollo's view. That means that he hasn't had any direct experience to the Parisians. To the Parisians, they haven't talked to one of them, or they haven't seen them. So whatever he sees is basically is a prejudice, because then it happens when he goes down to when he goes down to the plaza, and then he realizes that people are not evil, but they were, because some of them helped them. Some of them helped them. Uh, when she when he met Esmeralda, they are just like, they have become friends, and they are not bad people. Only when you have that experience that gypsies are not bad, gypsies are not cruel, that 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 means that the prejudices are the base of our thought, are the base of our thoughts. Finally, because we don't have too much time now, social stigmas. What are social stigmas? A social stigma are a type of prejudice created to contrast the existence of one group with what is considered truth. Therefore, it must refer to different elements specific to that stigmatized group that make it distinct. Social stigma is a mechanism that arises from the transformation of a singular opinion into a universal one. Okay, so they are prejudices created to contrast two different elements specific to that stigmatized group that make it distinct. Social stigma is a mechanism that arises from the transformation of a singular opinion into universal one. To discredit a social group by attributing an undesirable quality to it. Okay, so this is stigmatization. Finally, let's ask Gemini what's stigmatization or. Can you tell me some examples of stigmatization? Okay, so let's see here. Okay, it says stigmatization occurs when a person or group is negatively labeled or disapproved of due to certain characteristics that deviate from social norms. As you provided to explain, social stigmas are a type of prejudice that are created with the purpose of contrasting the existence of a group to the one considered as true. Therefore, it must make reference to different elements. For example, we have mental illness stigma, referring to someone with a mental health condition as crazy, lunatic, or psycho. When the person acts like that, you are you are stigmatizing the person because the person are acting are because the person is acting in that way, and this is not correct. For example, believing that people with mental illness are dangerous or or unpredictable, even though they are not more likely to be even though they are more likely to be victims than perpetrators of violence. So that's another stigma of people who suffer disability or some kind of mental illness. So you might think that they can act dangerously or they can be unpredictable, but instead of thinking that they can be more likely victims, or yes, they can be more likely victims than perpetrators of violence. One more time. Excluding someone from a job or housing opportunity because of their mental health history. That's another stigmatization. Okay, now here, what are some effects? Leads to feelings of shame, isolation, reluctance, reluctance to seek help, and discrimination in various aspects of life: employment, housing, social relationships. Now, we have another here: socioeconomic stigma. Socioeconomic stigma, um, poverty and homelessness. Assuming homeless individuals are lazy, addicted, or don't want to work, like they don't want to work. Treating people experiencing poverty with suspicion or contempt in public spaces or service settings. Excluding children from low income families from certain school activities or social circles. Wow, this is truly interesting, and um, the stigma of being a poor person or homeless person, because uh, that you know it's it's because it creates contrast. It creates contrast to one group to another group. Let's see, rich people and poor people. What is the stigma? We are rich and we are not like them because they are dumb, because they are stupid, because they are violent. So rich people are not violent. That that's the argument. Or rich people are not or rich people does rich people don't have addictions, okay? Because assuming homeless individuals are addicted or lazy, so rich people are not or mustn't be. Social stigma is a mechanism that arises from the transformation of a singular opinion into a universal one. To discredit a social group one more time is this bias or this tendency of discrediting is that social group attributing by attributing an undesirable quality. What can be a chronic illness, a poor people, or ugly people, or disabled people, or addicted people. For example, I think in my own experience, I have suffered from the stigma of suffering of. I'm not suffering, but how can I explain this? I have suffered the stigma of uh, having, how can I say, having this chronic illness. Can be HIV or epilepsy or chronic fatigue syndrome. Why? Because these illnesses or these conditions are misconceptions, or are usually, or they have this misconception about their condition. People don't know what they are, what they are, what truly they are. So it can lead to the society, to some groups, uh, to act uh, wrongly, to reject those people, to to do, or to perpetrate social exclusion, reduce opportunities, feelings of unworthiness, and even physical or verbal harassment. It can be other one, like a substance use disorder stigma, and most of them. Okay, let's continue tomorrow with the cultural values and discrimination and other topics. And that's it. Bye bye.